we're going to be talking about Caleb's life and kind of theme of the mountains that we all face in life and how God can help us overcome those mountains. Like I said, I do mainly work with men's ministry. We do these conferences. This is our third year. Third year actually being a teen challenge with it. And we do it all across the East Coast. I've always encouraged men's ministry in the local church, encouraged men to grow in their walk with God. I love what I do. I love what God has me doing. I'm not about building programs. I'm not about building churches. I'm about helping men realize the great forgiveness and the great freedom that is theirs through Jesus Christ, and how He can help any man break any bondage, any sin, anything they're struggling with in their life. He can help them overcome and start a new legacy in their life, a legacy of godliness. And my passion is so strong because that's what God's done in my life. We're going to talk to you about Caleb. I'm also going to tell you a little about my story and things God's helped me come through. Caleb is one of my favorite men in the whole Bible. How many here are familiar with Caleb's story at all?
Amen. Yeah.
Right, well, as we talk about Caleb, the first thing we got to remember, the beginning of it all with Caleb, is Caleb was born as a slave in Egypt. He was born, somebody else controlled him, somebody else owned him. If somebody told him to do something, he did it. He had no say in his life. He had nothing. He was owned by somebody. They controlled him. His life was not his own. But then, God set him free. God set him free from the bondage of slavery, from the abuse, from the shame of being a slave, and He moved the Israelites out of Egypt and towards the promised land. And the thing that characterizes Caleb's life, the number one quality that he had is he knew where he came from. He knew the life he had as a slave. He knew what it was like to live in bondage. And then he got freedom, and he chose in his heart he was never going back to slavery again. Nobody, nothing was making him go back to his old way of life. He was going to live free and serve God and follow God.
Yes.
And the first time we read about Caleb is in Numbers 13 to 14. Now, 2 whole chapters. I'm not going to read the entire chapter. It's a lot of scripture. I'll tell you the story. You can double check me in your Bibles later. But this is just a really cool passage in the Bible. It's kind of like James Bond meets the Dirty Dozen. I love it. These men are sent out by Moses to spy out the land of the promised land, see what was there, who they had to fight, what they were facing. And he sent out the 12 men, and among these 12 men was Caleb and Joshua. All the 12 men, they went throughout the promised land, they spied it out, they saw everything, they saw the people, the wealth, everything, and they came back with the testimony that, where God told them He was sending them, it was a really good place. I mean, when God promises something, He promises you the best, He comes through for it, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, these men, they saw it with their own eyes. This land was perfect, it was great, it was everything God promised to them. However, 10 of the spies also saw an area, it was a mountainous area where there were giants living, and the people were powerful and mighty, and seeing these men terrified them. And they came back and told Moses and the rest of Israel, it's a great land. They brought back, it says, they brought back a bunch of grapes to show them how great the land was, and I think, so what, great, big deal. But the bunch of grapes was so big, it took 2 men to carry them. I mean, it was a great place. But they couldn't get the image of those giants out of their head. It crippled them. It filled them with fear. And they slowly started telling the people, what they saw. The people were mighty. And there was really no way they could, overcome them. And slowly, fear started working its way through the camp of Israel. And people started getting scared. And they started murmuring against God and against Moses. And all of a sudden, a few people started saying, why would God bring us here? Weren't we better off back in Egypt? I mean, every time I read that, I'm just like, are you serious? You would rather go back to being beaten and abused every day of your life, having no control of your life, having somebody else tell you what to do, how to do it, how long to work, just to be under that kind of oppression. Instead of fighting for what you could have in God, you just want to go back. And that's kind of what I think Caleb thought, because as soon as he heard that, him and Joshua, they sprung into action. And they thought, you know what? I am never going back. I'd rather go to battle, and if I die in battle, I will die as a free man serving God than go back to the slavery that I was in before. So you have the whole nation of Israel on one side saying, we're going to rebel against God, we're going back. And you have Joshua and Caleb on the other side saying, no, we're going to do what God said. God promised it us. His word is true. He's not going to bring us all the way out here to abandon us. And they held firm to their faith with God. And what does the Bible tell us happened? Anybody know? They were rewarded for standing firm with God. I'm going to read the passage here to you. It says, not one of you, this is Moses speaking the words of God, not one of you will enter the land I swore with uplifted hands to make your home, except Caleb, son of some guy, and Joshua, son of Nun. As for your children that you said would be taken as plunder, I'm going to bring them into the enjoyed land you have rejected. But your bodies will fall in this desert. For 40 years, 1 year for each of the days you explored the land, you will suffer for your sins and know what it's like to have me against you. How many know I never want to have God against me? Right? Wow. I, the Lord, have spoken. I will surely do these things to this whole community, which banded together against me. They will meet their end in this desert. Here they will die. Listen to this. So the men that Moses has sent to explore the land, the men responsible for spreading the bad report about the land, were struck down and died of plague that day before the Lord. Immediate judgment. They were struck down. Of the men who went to explore the land, only Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of some guy who I'm not going to try and pronounce, survived. Okay, 12 men went on this spying mission, right? Only 2 survived. The other 10 struck dead. The entire nation of Israel at this point, you're numbering millions and millions of people. Only 2 of the millions went into God's promised land. What made Joshua and what made Caleb, who were focusing on Caleb, what made them different? And as I studied this passage, I thought about that a lot. You know why? It's 12 men. They all grew up in the same situation. They were all born in slavery. They all came from Egypt. They had all been set free by God. You know, they all saw the miracles God did. They saw the 10 plagues he sent upon the Egyptians. They all walked across the Red Sea when it parted on dry ground. They saw the Egyptians be swallowed alive. You know, every one of them saw that. What was different? Why did 10 say, after seeing everything God did, that God couldn't come through for them? But 2 said, look what God did in the past. Of course he's going to do what he said he's going to do. What made them different? And I think what God says about Caleb sums up what the difference was. Let's look at that verse here in verse 24. It says, my servant Caleb, because there's another spirit in him, and he is fully following me, I will bring him into the land which he has gone, and the seeds shall possess it. Okay, so Caleb stands in contrast to the other spies. And the reason is they didn't have the same depth of character that he had. They didn't have the same relationship with God that he had. You know, they had a surface relationship with God. God met their needs. That's all they wanted from God. They wanted God to take care of them, give them everything. They didn't want to serve him. They didn't want to follow him. They didn't want to obey him. They didn't take time to develop a relationship with God and get to know him and get to know his ways. They weren't grateful at all to God for the blessings and the freedom he gave them. Basically, they had thoughts where they deserved everything God did for them. Caleb and Joshua knew they deserved nothing, and everything they had was a gift from God. And God saw this different spirit, and he rewarded them for it. And Caleb, you know, he didn't die in the wilderness like the other people. I mean, you're talking, like I said, millions of people at this point, wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. And day after day, Caleb had to watch as his friends and his loved ones just dropped over dead. I'm sure it came a point around maybe year 39 where Caleb woke up in the morning, looked around, see, you know, how many more people are left like to go to God's promised land. I mean, he was a human. He knew what God said and he wanted God's promise. But, you know, he eventually, Caleb reached his promised land. Only Caleb and Joshua went in. Nobody else did. Because the others didn't know God. They didn't appreciate God. They didn't appreciate their freedom. They thought they deserved it, and of course God was going to come through for them. And you know, Caleb is one of my favorite men in the Bible. I love him. And the reason it means so much to me in his story is because God brought Caleb's story in the Bible to life at a very critical point in my life. I can tell you a little about my story. I grew up in the church. I was a church brat, kind of born and raised. My mom got saved when I was only a 20-year-old yet. My mom had a really hard life growing up, a very abusive family. They treated her horribly. And one day, when she was married, when my dad had us kids, a neighbor invited her to go to church with them. And she went to church, and the altar call was given, and she just felt called to go forward. And she went forward, and she said that when she went forward, it was the first time in her life she knew somebody wanted her, and that somebody loved her. Her whole life, nobody wanted her or loved her, but Jesus did. And my mom, she fell in love with God that day, and her whole life was devoted to living for God and just serving Him and raising me and my sister to do the same. The early part of my mom and my dad's marriage was really rough. My dad also grew up with a rough past, abusive past. I won't go into a lot of details, but it was just like horror for him. And he never dealt with it, he never really overcame any of it, and he carried it on into his relationship with my mom. Her life was just really tough. I remember times she told me and my sister that one time she went for a ride out on the mountain road by herself late at night, and she wanted to drive the car right off the road and just kill herself. She couldn't take it anymore. But she didn't do it because she had 2 little kids at home, and she knew if she wasn't there, there'd be nobody to take care of us because her family was so messed up, his family was so messed up. So she didn't kill herself that day because she loved me and my sister. And that's like such a special thing to know, but it shows how hard her life was. But then she found Jesus, and He changed her heart, and He just made her life. She had a purpose, she had a meaning, and everything in her life revolved around God. Eventually, she got my dad to start going to church with her, and week after week, my dad would sit there in the services, and they'd have an altar call at the end. And every week, right before the service, he'd time it that all of a sudden, I don't know if you pinch me or what you do, but he'd get me to cry, so he'd take me out to the nursery, so he wouldn't have to respond to the altar call. Every week he would do this. Until one week, I don't know what happened, his great escape plan didn't work, but he didn't get to go out, and they had an altar call, and knowing my mom, they're sitting towards the front of the church, and as they did the altar call, my dad felt a strong hand go on his shoulder. And there was a guy behind him, and he put his hand on my dad's shoulder and kind of almost picked him up and said, "You need to go to the altar, you need Jesus." Now, my dad knew this guy. He was kind of notorious in the town we lived in, and he knew my dad's family and all the baggage that went along with them. He was a friend of my dad's grandfather, and his name was Louis. And Louis and my great-grandfather, legendary in our area where they lived. Whether it be my grandfather betting away the family house in a poker game, or Louis busting up another bar in a bar fight. They were coal miners, they worked hard in the mine, and they played really hard at night. Everybody knew them. But then Louis found Jesus, and it changed his entire life. And he knew my dad, where he came from, he knew the family my dad had, how messed up they were, and he said, "You need Jesus." And he took him to the altar, and he kind of made my dad get saved. Now, I don't honestly recommend that approach. It was effective. My dad went, he was terrified of the guy. He was like this huge, huge guy. But basically my dad did it out of fear of this guy, not out of conviction of the Holy Spirit. So my dad never really changed. His life never changed. He still kept being the same man he was. However, my dad also was an accountant. He had a good job. Everything looked really good. So once he got saved, people in the church really embraced him. Quickly became a church elder. He was on the church board. All because, I don't know why, but he was. And he it looked really good. I mean, I'm sure you all encountered people like that. They look like they are the perfect Christian. Behind the scenes, they weren't. My dad, he embraced that attitude because for the first time in his life, he had admiration and respect. How many know as men would like to be respected, right? And my dad, because of the disability he had, was never respected, and he always had self-esteem issues. Now people looked up to him, and he was important, and so he ate it up. But behind closed doors, he never changed. He was still an angry man, he was a controlling man, he was an abusive man, and his anger and his abuse just dominated our family, it dominated our life. I'll say it this way, he was abusive to my mom in any way possible. I'll let you gather from that what you want, without being specific. With me, there was physical abuse, emotional abuse. My sister, a lot of emotional abuse from my dad. But the biggest thing my dad did to use us and he beat us with was the Bible. Now, how many know what that means? How many can relate to that when somebody beats you with the Bible, right? Where they're not living for God, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, but they find a few key scriptures in the Bible to tell you why they're right, you're wrong, you better get under their authority. He controlled us with, wives, submit to your husband, children, obey your father. He ignored the part where it says, don't provoke your children to wrath. And he ignored the part where it says, love your wife like Christ loved the church. Those kind of maybe whited them out in the Bible, I don't know. But he didn't really talk about that. It was, submit, get under my will, get under my authority. And along with that was abuse. One of the biggest ways my dad was abusive to me in my life was he caused separation between me and my mom. It's a classic abuser move, right? When you're somebody's abused, the abuser tries to separate you from other people so you can't tell anybody about the abuse. So he would be abusive to me, and he would tell my mom how bad I was, and how rebellious I was, and how she needs to crack down on me. So my mom, wanting me to grow up and be a decent person, would be hard on me. Meanwhile, my dad would come to me and say, "Oh, your mom's so hard on you. I don't understand why she doesn't like you, and she must not love you." And it just put this separation between us. And he kept saying, when he abused me, you can't tell your mom because, she might divorce me. And she divorces me, she's not going to want you. She doesn't love you. You're going to have to live with me, and then what are you going to do? Today's day and age, it's called parent alienation syndrome. How many know there's a syndrome for everything, right? That's what it's called now. It's like a thing. For me, it was just my life. It's what I grew up in. And as a result, I became a young man, a child who was just consumed with fear and rejection. And, it was just horrible. I just turned into a very angry man, a fearful person, full of anger and rage. Another way I struggled with abuse was, in my dad's eyes, to be a real man, you're an athlete. How many have heard that stereotype before? If you're not athletic, you're not a real man. Well, one of the reasons I'm sitting down today is I have a disability. I can't stand very long, so I can't wear shoes inside, it hurts too bad. I've had this disability my whole life. My dad insisted when I was a kid that I play local little leagues, local sports, and I couldn't do it. Physically, I couldn't do it. But he insisted I do it. He made me do it. My mom let me do it. And I was a pretty good hitter. I could hit real good. I was probably the best hitter on our team. But they don't need to hit and just stand there and admire it, right? What happens after you hit it? They make you run. No pinch runners in Little League. And because it was dirt, I couldn't run in dirt. And I would always be breaking ankles, breaking bones, having sprains. I would limp around the field. And this was back in the day before parents, they're allowed to, back then they would mock kids. Today you're not allowed to do that, but they would make fun of me, the parents would. They would yell at me how I was costing their team to win, and it was just horrible. My mom and my sister had to sit there and listen to it. My grandfather would come to the games for a while, who also had the same disability, and he was a very hard man, and he would almost be in tears listening to these people make fun of his grandson. He couldn't stand it anymore, and he quit coming, which caused a whole other issue because in my dad's eyes, it had to be the perfect family, and everybody had to be there and make good appearances. And it was just in other areas, abuse and all kinds of issues. Small example of how health issues were constantly used. My dad used health issues with my mom. My mom was never a healthy woman, and he would use her health issues, use her through them, find ways to hurt her through her weaknesses and abuse her. And slowly over the years, you can imagine, I became a boiling pot. I was just consumed with rage, and I had hatred just consumed me for my dad. But at the same time, with the isolation he did with my mom, what I felt for my dad, I gave to my mom. Does that make any sense? Very often when you're abused, you lash out at the person who's not abusing you, kind of like a why aren't you helping me kind of thing, but you don't know that's why you're doing it. So I destroyed my relationship with my mom. So I didn't have a relationship with my mom. My dad was my abuser. I basically grew up feeling just alone and scared. And when I graduated high school, I felt God leading me to go into ministry. I went to Bible college. Packed up all my bags, my personal bag, plus I also packed up all my baggage. Everything inside of me, the anger, the hate, and the rage, and that came with me too, because I never dealt with it. And when I went to college, honestly, college was probably the best time of my life. I loved it. I was free of all the craziness back home. But through that freedom, I got into a lot of trouble too. A lot of compromise, a lot of sin. And eventually, I ended up finding myself trapped in pornography. I would be leading men's groups on campus, doing men's ministry, and the men would leave the group. After I led it, we had prayer. They'd leave, I'd log on the computer and watch pornography. I was trapped. And I was no longer, I wouldn't go to church. I was reasoning away, I'm not going to church. I go to Bible college. We study the Bible. What I do is listen to somebody else preach. I'd sleep in. We had chapel every day, like you guys have chapel here every day. It's the same thing. Go to chapel. I have to go to church. I quit going to church. I quit spending time reading the Bible and praying, thinking, I don't really need to. Look at me, I'm in Bible college. It's going to be the next great thing, Billy Graham, watch out, here I come. I'm just going to be on my way. But I was a mess. I was a rage machine. The littlest thing would set me off. And during this time, God brought a professor into my life. For some reason, I don't know why, but this man just took an interest in me. And he started just talking with me. And as I spent time with him, I started seeing, the way my dad acted. Growing up my whole life, I was told my dad was this perfect man of God. He was godly. He was on the church board. He's what you want to be as a man of God. But I knew what I lived with, too. So my whole view of what a man of God was so twisted. And as I spent time with this man, I started seeing what a real man of God is. A real man of God loves. A real man of God serves. He cares about other people. He invests in other people. He isn't abusive, he's kind. And slowly I started seeing the situation at home was really messed up. My dad wasn't what people told me he was. And God started working inside of me. And then graduated. Eventually you have to graduate, right? You can't stay forever. You guys can't stay here forever, right? Eventually you're going to leave here. Some rotations to do that, apparently. But after I graduated college, I thought, there is one place in the entire world I do not want to go after college. Anyone want to guess where it was?
Back with Dad.
Home. Anybody want to guess where God sent me after college? Home. Graduated college, I went home. I could barely walk. My foot got so bad from just abusing myself and continuing the patterns of doing things I couldn't do. I could barely walk. I was a mess. There was no way I was helping anybody as a minister because I didn't let God help me, you know what I mean? So I went home, and during this time, as soon as I arrived home, we found out that my dad had been living a secret life for over 20 years. Completely a secret life. He had secret debt, $1,000 secret debt. To this day, we still don't know what that money was used for. Everything that he told us about his life and the way he was, we found out was not true. And how we know that could be pretty devastating to a family, right? I mean, to think when you grew up with what you thought you knew was a complete and utter lie. We found out my dad is a diagnosed pathological liar. I mean, how's that then to find out? Everything, your dad doesn't even know that he's not telling the truth because he doesn't know how to tell the truth. And during this time, it was nothing but pain and heartache in our family. My mom didn't leave my dad. She decided, she would stay with him and work through it. And slowly and surely, my mom, my sister, and I did. However, once my dad's secrets were exposed, he became more violent than he'd ever been in his life. I can remember times where I had to get in between him and my mom when he'd come after her. I remember once he was cutting something up in the kitchen and he came after my sister, knife in hand. I had to get in between the two of them. There were times, I remember once he came after me and my mom kind of stood between him. He threw her in the bookshelf and he just bruised her ribs. He was out of control. He was almost borderline even possessed. He'd get in a state of mind where his entire face would change. And he'd get this look in his eye and you could not get through to him. It was like something just came over him. And it was a nightmare that we were living through. And during this time, I slept with a baseball bat at night. My sister and my mom slept with frying pans. We didn't know what was going to happen. It was literally hell on earth. But through it all, I wasn't changing. I wasn't letting God work on me. Instead of saying, God, I don't want to be this way, I don't want to follow my dad's footsteps, I let the anger and the hate consume me, and I ended up, what happens when you hate somebody and you don't forgive them? You become just like them.
Yeah.
And eventually you saw the video we opened with, I talked a little bit about when I put my fist through the door. What happened that night was my mom had a nightmare, and she woke up and she was scared, and she jumped out of bed half asleep, and when she did, she fell, and she hurt her arm. And when she did that, my sister and I jumped out of bed to come and help her, and my dad jumped out of bed and started screaming and hollering at her, how could she wake him up? Well, what was wrong with her? He was supposed to be sleeping now. And he was just so abusive and so cruel to her, I couldn't stand it. And I got so angry, I put my fist through the door. And as soon as I punched the door, instead of punching my dad, and I punched the door, it's just like something inside me broke. And for the first time I saw, everything I hate about my dad, I became. It was me, it's who I was. I was angry, I was abusive, I was full of rage, I was addicted to pornography, on and on and on. Everything I hated, I became. And it broke my heart, and I said to God, God, I don't want to be this man anymore. I want to be the man you made me to be. I want to fulfill your will for my life. I need your help. I can't keep going on like this anymore. And that was like such a life-changing moment. From that moment on, God started really working inside of me. I went through counseling, went to lots of counselors. Don't ever shrug at counseling. It is a great thing to get outside perspective and help. I had counselors help me work through it. I spent hours upon hours facing my pain with God, remembering things that I had forgotten even happened. The Holy Spirit brought back to my memory, things I had buried and just couldn't face the pain of. I had to remember. And I'm not going to lie to you and tell you, oh, it was great, it was easy. It was hard. It hurt. It hurt to remember these things. It hurt to deal with them. I'm sure it was what you're going through now, going through breaking free of your addictions. There are times where it physically hurts, right? There's times where your body, it craves it again. Those are times you need to persevere even harder and dive into God's Word and dive into the Bible. And, God kept working on me. And He helped me face the pain, and He helped me learn how to be a different man. The book that we gave you today, that book was written out of this season of my life. Things God showed me about different men in the Bible, how to learn from their example and apply it to my life. Everything in that book I've lived. So it's a very personal part of me, what God did in my life. I wanted to take that story and help other men experience the same freedom that God's given to me. And like I said, God started making me a new man. And He healed my relationship with my mom. We both started, I went to her and I told her what had been going on. I finally behold the truth about the isolation. And we were restored. And for about 10 years of my life, I lived with my mom. We spent time together. We restored our relationship. And it was great. I finally had my mom. And it's a time that, while I wasn't ministering, it looked like I was a failure. I would never trade that time for anything in the world. Because number one, God healed me. And number two, He healed my relationship with my mom. And then a few years later, God began opening doors for me in ministry to help other men. We started writing different articles for different magazines and ministries. We started doing the Mantours. And also right around that time, though, my mom suddenly passed away. She was, 62? My glasses on, I can see what number you're holding up. 62. It's my sister back there. And she passed away very suddenly. Quite honestly, a lot of the reason she passed away was because of abuse from my dad in her life. She died very young. He was largely responsible for it. And out of that time, I said to God, I'm done. Out of the grief and out of the pain of losing my mom, and just, when somebody close to you dies, it just devastates you. And I said to God, I'm done. I'm done with my dad. He's out of my life. I'm not having anything else to do with him. I'm tired of the abuse. I'm tired of all of it. He's out. He's done. And God said to me that when we said, no, He's not. You want to go around and you want to teach other men to forgive. And you want other men to learn how to treat other people with God's love. If you're going to do that to other men, then you got to do it in your own life. And God required me to forgive my dad, not cut my dad out of my life. And He started showing me that my dad, the way he was a result of all kinds of stuff he had in his life. He had a horrible past. Most parents, when they punish their kids, they give them a timeout, or back in the day, they give them a spanking. My dad's parents, they drugged him. They took him to witches to get spells put on him. All this different stuff. It doesn't excuse the way he treated us, but when as an adult stopped looking at my dad with the pain of a child and looked at him through the eyes of an adult, could see that he was just as big of a mess inside as I was. And when I was able to do that, I was able to let him off of the hook that I had him on and start forgiving him. And even now, my dad is not that much different. He has started going to church, which is great. I'm happy about that. He still does have abusive fits now and then, but my dad lives with me. When my mom passed away, my sister and I inherited a house. My dad lives with us. It's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you and say every day it's wonderful, it's great, and I love every moment of it. But it's what God asked me to do, to show him God's love in hopes that he'll experience God and repent and change. But, God changed me. He made me a different person. Every man in this room has something in their past. You all have your own stories. Most of you probably have a more dramatic, more painful story than mine. I just share what I know. It's what I lived. All of us have things that we just carry through our life, hurts and pain and bondages. And just like Caleb, we have these bondages throughout our whole lives, but then God sets us free. You are here today, and God is working on your life. He wants to set you free. This time of challenge is not a waste of time in your life. This is not something you got to get through to get back to your regular life and the way you used to live. This is a defining moment in every man in this room's life. From this moment on, you have a choice to make. Are you going to follow God wholeheartedly like Caleb, or are you going to go back to Egypt? They can teach you all the principles they want here. They can make all the rules, all the requirements, and I know you guys have a strict schedule here, right? Every minute of every day for you guys is scheduled. That's for a reason. And you can choose to resent it and not go with it and wait, just serve your time to get out of here, or you can choose to embrace it and allow God to do a mighty work inside of you. And I'm here to tell you that if you embrace it, he will do it, because he did it in my life. There was many years where I ran from it. I wasn't going through counseling. I wasn't going to deal with any of it. But then when I smacked that door and it broke me, I embraced it. And for the first time in my life, I was willing to accept help. I was willing to admit, hey, I ain't got it all together. I got problems. I got big problems. And that's the biggest step, is admitting that you have the problems. And then God can begin to work inside of you. So I just want to challenge you, while you're here, take full advantage of this opportunity. This is not a punishment. This is an opportunity. This is a lifeline for every man in this room, so that the rest of your life you can have a legacy following God wholeheartedly like Caleb. And Caleb, he never went back to slavery again. He didn't die in the wilderness. He got the promised land God gave him. Even when the rest of the nation rebelled, he got what God wanted for him because he followed God wholeheartedly. And my favorite part of Caleb's story is found in the book of Joshua. It's 40 years later, all the people have died, and they're entering into the promised land. Only Joshua and Caleb went in, but they went in. There came a day where they got to the border, and he took that step, and he was standing in God's will for his life and God's promise. He was 85 years old at that time, but he was where God told him was going to be. And then he was grateful to God at this time for his freedom. Even at age 85, after having to wander around for 40 years with the same cranky, miserable people. I'm sure there's moments in here you guys get sick of each other, right? Me and my sister, I love her with all my heart. We live together, we minister together, we travel together. She's my best friend. There's times we get sick of each other. It's relationships. I'm sure there was times where Caleb was like, I cannot stand you people anymore. You held me up for 40 years of my life. But eventually he got into God's promised land at the age of 85. And we're going to look here at Joshua 14. It says, this is what Caleb said to Joshua. They're in the promised land, and he went up to Joshua and he said, Moses swore in that day, saying, surely the land where your foot has trodden shall be your inheritance and your children's forever, because you have wholeheartedly followed me. And now behold, the Lord kept me alive. And he said these 45 years, ever since the Lord spoke this word to Moses. And now here I am this day, 85 years old. Listen to this. This cracks me up. I am as strong this day as I was the day that Moses sent me. Just as my strength was then, so now is my strength for war, for both going out and for coming in. Now therefore, give me this mountain. Yes. I love that. 85-year-old old man, he's strapping on his sword, he's saying, I want that mountain.
Yes.
Remember the mountain? What was the mountain we talked about before? That's where the giants lived. That was the area that caused everybody to be afraid to conquer God's land. And for 40 years, Caleb wandered in the wilderness looking at that mountain. I'm sure he was ticked off that that mountain was what made him continue into the promised land. And when the 40 years was up, he said, that's what I want. I want that mountain. And he didn't send off the younger guys to go get it for him. He put on his sword at 85 years old. 85! I am going to be 40. That's double my age plus some. 85 years old, he went and he conquered the hardest place. The place with the biggest giants, the biggest enemies, the hardest terrain. And he conquered it. And how did he do it? It says in this passage, it may be that the Lord will be with me, and I'll be able to drive them out of the land. 85 years old, there wasn't a doubt in his mind or in his heart that God was going to do what God said he was going to do. Why? Because he knew what God did in the past. He remembered God's blessings. He knew the freedom that he was living in, and nobody was going back. He was following God wholeheartedly, even if it meant getting out of his hammock. He couldn't sit in there and say, hey, you kids, get off my lawn. He couldn't talk about his arthritis anymore or anything. He had to get up and say, I'm taking that mountain. It's going to be mine. And you know, I just love that. Honestly, that verse has become my prayer. How many here have a mountain in their life? We all probably have a mountain in our life. I have a couple mountains in my life. One of them is we're doing these conferences. We do them from January through May. We're on the road every weekend. I have a disability that, the only way to explain it is it's a neurological disease that twists your appendages. Like, I can't make my hand go any straighter than that. Somebody asked me to sign the book. I could barely hold the pen to do it. My foot rolls like that, and every step I take is painful. And God has me doing this work, doing these conferences, and it's a huge mountain because my body fights against me every minute that I do it. And so that's a mountain. And as some days I just can't stand it anymore, and I know I have to get up and do something, and the pain's just too strong. And I just want to lay there in bed and say, God, I'm not doing it. It hurts too bad. But my prayers become, all right, God, give me this mountain. Help me get out of this bed, put my clothes on, and go do what you called me to do, because I know that you called me to do it. Another huge mountain we have right now in our lives is, part of our ministry is we want to put the books, like you got today, into prisons.
Yep.
There's 30 federal and state prisons in Pennsylvania, and I want to get these books into every one of the prisons. That's a huge mountain, right? And it takes a lot of work, it's expensive, and it's just like a mountain that God's given me this vision. I have no idea how we're going to climb the vision. But my prayer is, God, give us a mountain. It's your will, it's your bill, you're going to pay for it. Biggest mountain I'm facing right now, to be very honest with you, is part of being a missionary is you got to go around and ask people to support you, right? You got to go church to church, ask the church to support you. And it just terrifies me. It is like this huge mountain in front of me. I just think, I don't even know how to climb it. I mean, we're at 18%. I got 82% more support rates. And I say to God, how are we going to do this? And God gave me this verse. Ask me to give you this mountain. So whenever I start to get scared about it or fearful, I say, okay, God, give me this mountain. You called me to do this work. It's your bill. Hey, give me this mountain. And you know, it's an intimidating thing, but it's what God's called me to do. And honestly, the fear has been replaced with an excitement and almost an anticipation. Just I can't wait to see how God does it because it seems impossible to me. I have no idea how He's going to do it. I don't see a way. But the Bible says God makes a way, there's no way, right? So I'm waiting to see how He does it. Like Caleb, I know where I came from. I know the wreck I was. I know I was destined to live a life in bondage, just like my dad and his dad before him and his grandfather before him. That was my destiny. That was going to be my legacy. But I know that God set me free. I'm never going back. I'm starting a new legacy. And you know, nothing's making me go back. Not my disability, not my circumstances, nothing. And you know, I don't know where you're coming from today. I have some idea some of what you guys are dealing with because you're here. But everybody's mountain's different. Every one of you has a mountain in your life. You know, maybe some of you are having a physical issue. Some of one brother here was on crutches. I get what he's going through. Maybe you have relationships that have been ripped apart, and you're saying, kind of like Church this morning, his wife left him, and he had no idea how he's going to get it back. Maybe that's your situation. You have damaged relationships, like the video said, damaged relationships. Maybe you're facing financial problems. Maybe you're addicted to porn. You're dealing with overcoming your addiction, and that seems like a mountain. When you first got here, I'm sure it was probably the hardest mountain you can climb, and every day they make you climb a little bit further, right? I'm here to tell you today, I don't know where you're coming from, but I know everybody in here has a mountain that seems insurmountable, but I want to tell you, every one of you can climb your mountain. You can climb it. God's going to help you. Make your prayer Caleb's prayer. God, give me this mountain. Dedicate yourself to following God wholeheartedly like Caleb. Dive into his word. It sounds like such an easy, pat answer, but it is the answer. God's word is like a lifeline, it's an instruction manual for life. Dive into prayer. You know, we have the ability to talk to the creator of the universe. And sometimes we just take prayer for granted. But how cool is that? The guy who created everything, the tree that made that bench you're sitting in, he created it. And he wants to talk to you. I mean, he's more powerful than the president, more powerful than the United Nations. Those guys don't want to talk to us. They don't even want to hear from us, right? But you know, God wants to hear us. He wants us to pour our hearts out to him. He wants to speak to us. The Holy Spirit wants to change everything inside of you. He wants to revolutionize your life. So as we wrap up today, because we got another workshop, you guys get to go listen to the other guys. As we close, I just want to take a minute. I just want to have you just close your eyes right here before God. Just take a little quiet time with God. And I just want to ask you right now, what is your mountain? What is it that's facing you today? Or is it a fear? Is it a being scared? Is it feeling alone? Does overcoming your addiction seem too big of a hill to climb? Is there a relationship that you just look at and you're like, I don't ever see how that could be restored? I don't know what your mountain is today, but I'm positive that everybody in here has one. And right now, I just want to pray a prayer for every one of you today. Father, I just thank you for giving me this chance to share just my heart with these men, a little bit about myself, about what you've taken me through, and how you're helping me climb the mountains. And I don't say to give praise to Jamie. Who cares about me? It's about showing you your power and what you can do in lives. Father, every man in this room has something they're facing. Father, I don't know every mountain. I know when you're facing a mountain, it seems impossible, and it gets discouraging, and they feel hopeless, and depression can set in, and hopelessness. Father, I just pray that you will just help them cling to something they heard today. Father, help their prayer become, give me this mountain, Father God. Give them the strength to get through. Give them the hope. Father, give them the perseverance. Father, you say in your word that perseverance is one of the fruit of the Spirit. Develop that in every one of them. Father, pour out the power of the Holy Spirit fresh on every life in here today. Let a new power fall on them to break their chains, break their addictions, break their bondages. Give them the strength to climb the mountain in front of them. Give them a heart that is wholeheartedly devoted to you, that they don't want anything else in life but your best, so that they can create a legacy that's going to last, Father God. Give every one of them a stone-hard resolve that they are never going back to their Egypt. Just like Caleb, they are never going back. It's not an option. It's not going to happen. It's not for them. They're going forward to you no matter what you make them go through, where you take them. They're yours, and you're their Father. Give them that peace. Give them that assurance. Give them a fresh anointing and power today. Bless every one of them as they go to the next workshop, and as they continue their journey here at Teen Challenge. I pray your blessing on every single one of them. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thanks, guys.